First up is the LINX CEO, Kurtis Lindqvist, who will give you an update from his perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie, and let me see what I see. There we go. Thank you, and welcome everyone. I'm Kurtis Lindqvist. I'm the CEO of LINX, and I'd like to start with obviously after the positive start we had in November of having a in-person LINX meeting again. We had sort of hoped that was the new trend, but we decided this time, given the circumstances when we were planning for this, that we didn't think that would be the right thing to have done. But we certainly hope that we'll all be back in person for the May meeting. But so fingers crossed that nothing started deteriorating from today. So with that, I'm going to give you the usual CEO updates. Some of this might be a little bit of a repeat from the in-person meeting, but I'll come back to that. So just a little bit of numbers. We have around 881 members. Well, around, it was 881 members when I wrote the slide last week from 82 countries, and we have had 10 applications so far this year, to contrast this to 95 applications we had in 2021. That was actually slightly higher than we had thought, but again, as we're becoming larger and larger, we also see a little bit more churn in membership or turnover. We do evaluate or go back and ask why members leave and why certain join, and this tends to be because of mergers, acquisitions, change of business. There's a whole range of reasons that we take on board, and we also report on this regularly to follow up. But we see a slightly slow uptick of membership. We have added 2.7 terabit of edge capacity since the last meeting, and that's consisted of, well, I'll come back to it in a second, but 1300 gig ports and also 400 gig ports. So that's a great first for us. So that brings us currently to 340 100 gig ports in production and 1040 10 gig ports, which is actually an increase. So 10 gig ports keeps going up. We had thought that we were nearing a plateau of 10 gig ports where we would see the 10 gig ports plateauing and 100 gigs growing, but we actually see growth in both of these so far. So this in total has brought it up to 45, more than 45 terabit of edge capacity across all the LINXs we operate. So quite a growth in the quarter again in that. And this is also reflected in the, if you keep track of the social media, by the peak traffic that we keep seeing, that we have new, that also keeps growing. A little bit about the regional IXS. We also see growth there. Where we have seen quite a bit of growth is in Jeddah in the Saudi exchange. So now up to 600 gig port and 710 gig ports. Manchester again, quite a bit of growth up to 1700 gig ports. So we see growth across the regional IXs as well, which is very positive, of course. Something about the staff situation. So we have 2 new starters in the business development team. Colin Peckham might be familiar to a few of you from the past, as is Justin Stay Graham, who also joined us in the BD team. So both of them joined us at the beginning of the year. And if we would all been together, you'd all have a chance to meet them in person, I'm sure. But now we're going to have some virtual wave from them, and they all look forward to seeing at events and hopefully in May at the LINX meeting again. We haven't had any leavers in this period, and we have 2 open positions. One is as a database resilience engineer and as a technical product manager. And there's more info on the website if you're interested in either of those roles or know anyone who is interested. So on to a bit of updates. That's last night in the wrong order, but that's okay. If I just start with the pricing, we presented this at the last LINX meeting. We actually voted on this as part of the fee schedule for 2022. We have a new pricing schedule where, as of January 1st, we, besides the usual the lowering of prices we announced, we also split the piece into the prices into a new pricing structure where we charge separately for the port access and for the services across the port, where we have 1, 2, 5, and 10 gigabit pairing services available over 10 gig ports, 30 and 10, 30 and 100 gigabit peering services over 100 gig port, and 400 gig peering services over a 400 gig port. And in additional to these services of various bandwidth, you can also have private VLANs, cloud access, multi-user groups, etc., across these ports as well. And the full pricing and product list is on the website. You can have a look at that. This is just a small reminder of this change that came into force then. And with the 2, 5, and 30 gig, there should be a much easier upgrade path than in the past for members who wants to grow on the LINX platform. So moving on then, as you know, in also I think it was early December, we launched a new portal, and this generated a bit of discussion on the members mailing list. And in the beginning of January, I posted a post-mortem that we had done internally about this, and I believe Richard and Ricardo are going to talk a little bit more about this and share some more insight on this. But we posted a post-mortem, and what we have found was about how the launch went and the feedback from the membership. And we're busy implementing these learnings. It was in the email I shared. We listed the learnings we had from this, and we're making sure that we incorporate going forward and take this on board as well. So, also at the last LINX meeting, we talked about the changes to the mailing list, and you will have seen several reminders before the change in December following the LINX vote, where we moved all mailing lists away from being under the linx.net domain over to lists.linx.net. And you will have seen an announcement a week or so ago from Richard saying that this was now the only available. There was a small transition period where you could use both addresses, but now we have moved this. This split is complete, and so the linx.net domain is for staff emails and internal links mails, and the list.linx.net is for all the mailing lists we operate. So that's just a reminder of that. So please update your address books or any filters you have. If you think you lost me emails, that might well be wise. Another update is, and I think Richard's going to tell you a lot more detail about this, probably, is around the ISO 27000 certification. So at the end of last year, we completed an ISO 27001 audit. We haven't actually got their actual certificate yet. I don't believe anyway, and we've got it in the last few days when I've been off, but we have completed the audit and we passed the certification. Now you might ask why we decided to do this and why we felt this was important. So we've been analyzing the telecom security requirements that's coming into the force later this year, and we believe that this was a framework that gave us a lot of the structures and support that we will need in place by the time these come into force, and that this was a good structure for us to implement and sort of a if you want an easier way to reach this future compliance that we will need by doing this. We're not quite done with this. There's going to be either with the TSRs or with ISO 27000. There will be more work for us in 2022 and onwards. And this is a topic I'm sure we'll come back to many times over to come back to what this means and how we have done this work. But we have at least done the first step of this, and luckily we passed. Luckily, it was a lot of hard work by Richard and many other teams, Richard's teams and many other teams actually to make sure we passed this. So that's also ongoing. One of the things I wanted to flag that we haven't talked so much about, I think they have mentioned it, but not in great detail, is that we're using a Desk Pro ticketing system that when you have contacted support at linx.net in the past, you'd have noticed that you get this ticketing system. We are moving a lot of pretty much all our member communication over to this, so contact with sales, member relations, finance, etc., over to the same system. And as we do that, you can also provide feedback. And I want to stress one thing is that it's very easy when I say when you provide feedback that we only get the negative feedback, and that's not really what I want to stress. This that, of course, if you think there's issues with how we have resolved your questions or what you brought to us, you should flag that as well. But also, please do give us feedback on what we are doing well. And I know that this is a bit of a template request, but if there are things you think we should do more of, or that you think we are doing really well, then please send a feedback back to us as well. We do take a lot of membership feedback very seriously, and we do actually track these feedbacks, and we do look at this and take this on board and discuss it. So if you interact with LINX and you think that this is a member of staff who did really well, or a member of staff, or a way that this was resolved that you think was exceptionally, please let us know. But likewise, if you think that this wasn't to your satisfaction and why, then please provide us that. But please be slightly constructive in that feedback as well, so we can do something with it. Right? So, but that's a tool that's there for you. I just wanted to highlight this as well. 400 gig, as I said, we have our first 400 gig port launched using Nokia. Was presented in last LINX meeting. We have some networks who previously showed interest, but because of equipment shortages, component shortages, long delay times, at the moment we only have one 400 gig port live, and we'll see how that develops. For LINX, the COVID response, we had done a return to offices, but following the change in guidelines in December, we decided to follow them, and we moved almost all LINX, or pretty much all LINX staff working from home again, and until the government recommendation changed at the end of January, sorry, and we have now done a limited return to office, but we're still trying to be slightly cautious about having every single team together, etc., for the risk of losing a full team in one go due to COVID. We are expecting to return to a more permanent hybrid working model, as I think we talked about last summer. It feels a bit like a false start, but we're going to cover. Hopefully, this time it's for real, and we'll return this hopefully very shortly into the new normal for us. I'm going to stop there and ask if there's any questions so far on the actual update before I move on.
I don't see any questions in the chat, so if you...
There's no raised hands I can see either, I think so. Okay, I'll move on then. So, oops. Oh, hang on. Whatever, I can't see the title, but that's because my participant window is funny. There we go. So yeah, I want to talk a bit. So this is actually the same slides I used at the last LINX meeting, but I want to reiterate this a little bit as I have all of 5 minutes left, or whatever is 4.5. No, hang on, I've got more than that. So I'm going to go through this a little bit and talk about the LINX strategy work that we do, and this is a slightly deliberate to ensure that we circulate the way that we, as in LINX, the board, the staff, all of us see the market and how we have come to the strategy we see, a little bit what that means for what we intend to do going forward. So we work on a 3-year strategic plan that's developed jointly by the board and staff. We review this annually against how the market develops, feedback we get, and how we judge the success of the strategy that we have developed. This strategy drives the priorities for annual roadmaps that are written by every team, as well as the objectives you set both individually and for the company objectives. And then we break this down into initiatives that we support throughout the entire planning increments, the safe PIs that we do, which is basically quarterly. So this all flows through the company, how we do it and how we work with this. And as I said last time, the observations we have a little bit is that then we had 880 members from 84 countries, so that's clearly changed from today, but it's a very diverse mix of members with a very diverse set of expectations and interconnection needs. And our role is, of course, to try to meet as much of this as possible and makes sense for the company and that is sustainable. Right? So we also can see that the very large traffic flows. So when I started this industry in the late 90s, mid-90s even, a lot of the large traffic flows was destined between providers, mostly for all the content in the US. I think there's a question here. No. And this changed towards, as we saw, content emerged at the IXPs, then the IXPs became very much the focal point of large traffic flows. And this has today been replaced by PNIs, in-network caches, and we're now talking about edge compute and edge caching. So this large traffic flows, which are probably 80–90% of all user-generated traffic, that's all been changed in the past few years. That doesn't mean that the growth, the interconnection has slowed down, is changed probably, and we see that a lot of the services we provide is between the long tail, if you want, the networks who do not have in-network caches or PNIs with the content providers. We see a lot more private interconnects, both in terms of the actual cross connects or cabling that LINX provides, but we also see private VLANs, closed user groups. All of this is emerging. And we see an increase in cloud interconnects as well, and also to use IXPs for the cloud interconnects. And we see these shifts, what originally drove ISPs to use IXPs and internet connects, is now starting to make sense for a completely different new segment. We see enterprises, these financial services, all discovering interconnects for not very different reasons that ISPs once upon a time did the same thing, right? But you can see how this is shifting. So we also see that further observation is, of course, competition is increasing, either directly or from substitutes, and this is across all markets. This is not unique to LINX. The competition is quite strong, and it's also quite well funded in many cases. And this is see this as a general market observation. We also see that there's becoming much more, if you want, complete interconnection solutions where one provider offers everything from co-location to cross connects to cloud services. Now we do the same. We are a reseller of co-location, as you might know. We provide cross connects, but we also offer this complete package, and we believe that this is clearly where a lot of the market is going. So in 2020, the strategy actually this has pretty much been in place since 2018. We haven't changed it that much, but we basically brought this down into 4 main areas that we see where we need to focus. One is of building economies of scale. The other is the regional IXP strategy, broader interconnect offerings, and long-tail and growth market opportunities. Now, economies of scale might be fairly self-explanatory. We try to scale better. We try to increase the automation. Lesser working capital management is something we say if you want to be the business school like, and regional IXP strategy is there to support the regional IXPs we have. We believe that this is a part of the future. We know all the talk about edge. Not quite sure exactly what that means, but I think that there is a clear move to having a much more wider distributed and finer granular delivery of traffic. Broader interconnects offering is very much about our product portfolio. Mike's going to talk later today about the marketplace. We have the private VLAN, we have cloud access, we have launched, and this is again going back to this having a full interconnection offerings as needed. And the long-term growth market opportunities is to ensure that we have this the reach, if you want, of networks that all the participant IXP wants, and that you have this value constellation that makes sense for everyone. So a set of providers that are interested in the cloud providers, that you have the cloud access, for the content providers, that you have cloud access that's available to those segments who wants to reach that as well. And that includes the pricing, so that this is at a price point that's attractive to the participants. We tend to break this down a little bit more. This is my last slide, into objectives. We talk about market development, process improvements, people development, and products. And this is some of the activities we do around all of these that we have either already done or that we work and that we believe is in support of this strategy. And this is sort of what we're working on and where we see the coming years work on this in this strategy for LINX to be done. And that was my last slide. So I'm going to stop there and ask you if there's any questions.